The next question, Speaker Gingrich, is going to come from Alfonso Aguilar, who is with the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles.
Mr. Speaker, as you will know, Latinos are passionately for life. However, today in America, 22% of abortions are performed on Latina women. There's an urgency to stop this crime. Professor Robbie George, the founder of American Principles Project, a Princeton professor, has suggested that we may not have to wait for the Supreme Court to revoke Roe versus Wade, that based on the 14th Amendment, the U.S. Congress could pass a law stating that a person comes into being at conception. Would you consider that strategy to advance the cause of life?
That's a very, very good question. But I have to take just 1 second to note, you can tell who the center of power is up here. Notice the only guy who's not holding a microphone. Very impressive. I've talked with Robbie George about this at length. Robbie George, for those of you who don't know him, is an absolutely brilliant professor at Princeton who has been thinking very deeply about the question of religious liberty in America and the implications of our religion for public policy. And he is really, I think, one of the great intellectual leaders of our time. And I've told Robbie that I think there's a very good possibility if we could elect a majority to the Senate, which would be 60 votes for practical purposes, and we could elect a solid majority in the House, which is why if I become the nominee, I'm going to want to run a team campaign to make sure that the team wins on a team agenda. I would favor passing a bill defining personhood beginning at conception and limiting the court's ability to have the bill reviewed, both of which are legal, in my judgment. And we wrote a paper. If you go to my website, newt.org, there's a paper on rebalancing the judiciary, which Vince Haley helped write, which we've worked on for 9 years. And I believe the judiciary is totally out of control, that is violating the Constitution routinely. And so I would be very much in favor of recentering the system and recognizing that the Founding Fathers wanted a balance of power between the three branches. They didn't want the judiciary to be above the legislative and executive branches. And I think the 14th Amendment is a good step. Let me say one other thing. One of the reasons we have so many abortions is that the federal government funds Planned Parenthood. And the fact is, Planned Parenthood is the largest single provider of abortions in the United States. I would move actively as president to defund Planned Parenthood, take all of that money. I want to take all of that money and put it into adoption services so that young women can choose life rather than death.